Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowering Leaders podcast. At Aleda, we are passionate about inspiring connections and creating a world of collaboration. Our signature program, Aleda Connect, curates groups of 5 to 6 leaders from diverse backgrounds in sport, industry, social venture and the arts who come together to learn, to connect and to collaborate.
It's been amazing. Here you are on this Zoom call, feeling within the first session like you intimately know these people and care for them. And then all of a sudden realizing that even though you're in totally different industries, we're all going through the same thing, or we've been through it and we can help each other, or there's just this hurdle that you can't see past. And then you share it with the group and there's 5 answers in 40 minutes and you think, I have not slept for 2 weeks thinking about that. Like, how is this possible?
You're listening to stories and the breadcrumbs of what makes success, and I constantly get something out of these Zoom calls and catch-ups because we're all living the same stuff, aren't we?
Extraordinary people with extraordinary experience. What happens there is magical.
The Empowering Leaders podcast is proudly brought to you by Victoria University, where cutting-edge sports and exercise science facilities like heat chambers, performance labs, and altitude environments mean VU is ranked 7th in the world for sports science. VU, uniquely you. As always, a big thank you to Jason Nicholas and his team at Temper Bedding, a mattress like no other. If you enjoy listening to the Empowering Leaders podcast, be sure to subscribe, and please, if you have a moment, we would love you to leave a review so we can reach more listeners and empower more leaders. Today on the Empowering Leaders podcast, I'm joined by Jack Preddey, founder of Optimize Mind Performance, a platform bringing world-class mental skills training to athletes and leaders everywhere. Jack's work is trusted by elite sporting organisations, and the Optimize Mind Performance platform has drawn praise from people like Hall of Fame coach John Casey, who called it an outstanding resource for players and coaches, like having the top mental game experts on call 24/7. The program features contributions from some of the biggest names in performance psychology. Jack himself played professional sport, and his mission now is to democratise mental skills training, making it as accessible and essential as physical training for anyone wanting to perform at their best. It is a great mission, Jack. You're doing incredible work. Nice to spend some time with you today.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it. Nice to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Life's taken you to New York. Jack, you're joining us from Manhattan this morning, but I wanted to go back to the beginning and ask you from the start, what was the moment or the experience that sparked the idea for Optimized Mind Performance?
Yeah, I think, obviously touched on the intro there. So I was lucky to play decent level cricket, played a lot of sport growing up, grew up in Barrow, so country, New South Wales, Australia. So you always had a bat and ball in your hand or kicking the footy. And sport was a massive part of my life, and was fortunate enough, to play at a decent level, and obviously so much training and effort goes into that. And I think anyone who's played any level of sport, I say, not even at a high level, but there's obviously a huge mental component to it. And essentially the idea came just from a bit of a frustration of so much effort being put into the physical side, a lot of hours in nets, a lot of hours running around fields, and then you'd inevitably go out, be nervous and sneak off, and your whole Saturday would be ruined. So it was just trying to really substantiate that mental side, which we all know is so important, and without much technology or resourcing around that was accessible to myself as an athlete. Wanted to kind of help solve that problem for athletes all around the world and organisations at the same time. So it was really my journey in sport, and probably a bit of a disappointment and lack of success that spurred on Optimize.
And Jack, is that something that, as you observed in yourself, that we see these incredible athletes, whatever their discipline, who've technically got great skills, that have got physical attributes that are outstanding, but there's a whole bracket that can't quite get the mental aspect of the game right, and that leaves them short in their career. And it still feels, even in 2025, we haven't quite understood that perhaps the majority of the games are in the mental space. Was that what your experience as an athlete helped you form this space that you're in now? Yeah,
exactly. I just think there's so much guesswork around the mental game, to your point. Like even in 2025, it's for all the sayings around sport, 90% mental, 10% physical, like we all know them. It's still a really misunderstood space, and something that hasn't been, like I said, really quantified yet and ran with. And I think just so many there's so many war stories, even people who've played at the best, who have had great careers, who feel like they've left it out there, let alone the ones that might not quite get there or don't even realise their potential. So yeah, really trying to unlock that, I guess, black box is our mission, and helping that be scalable across the board, because yeah, it is something that's still really misunderstood. And if we can do it, then who knows where the next Messi or something might come from that previously might not have.
Jack, I was lucky enough to have a conversation with Mike Hussey, who's a legend of international cricket, and to hear him talk about the ups and downs of his mental journey in his sport. And really it was almost gone before it started, because he had all the technical skills. He was a fanatical trainer physically, but until he worked out the mental part of the game, he just couldn't get to the level he wanted, and then went on to be one of the all-time greats, and then nearly lost it again because he just changed mindset. What are the skills that you see that separates the great performers from the good ones?
Yeah, I think it's just, the big one is just those who can understand their game and really understand their mindset as early as they can, and really kind of take as much of that emotion, or learning how to control that emotion out of the game, and really just be, you talk about the zone, but just trying to be in that kind of neutral mental state is what's talked about, and not reacting too much, not kind of getting over nervous and all those sort of things, and really using all that to your advantage and being able to put that energy into the right place is really what the difference that I see, and fortunate enough to obviously see a lot of it, right up close now with a lot of the elite athletes and organizations we use. But just be able to harness and understand your mindset, what are your skills, what are your strengths, and really double down on them. And that's the thing that we preach with mental skills training is they're trainable. You can continue to grow them and grow that, almost like that brain muscle, to ensure that you can keep doing it and not just be a one-off, and depending on a good day, a bad day. No, this can be something that's trained, so it can be every day. So yeah, really understanding that, and then doubling down on that through that mental skills training.
Jack, even the greatest athletes in the world have incredible setbacks and hurdles. No one misses that part of it. I'm thinking Michael Jordan, some would say the greatest athlete ever, and he talks about the thousands of shots he missed at crucial stages that no one talks about. We celebrate the genius wins along the way, or the injury setbacks. For him, he's lost his father mid-career, went and changed sports, and then came back to basketball. We sort of forget the hurdles along the way. But again, what do you think of the tools that get great athletes are able to bounce back from those setbacks a bit more quickly, I think, than others? What sets them apart?
Yeah, for sure. I think at that level, they're doing so much of what the science asks you to do, and they probably don't realise, just because it's almost innately buried into them. But I think that ability, you've called it, to constantly back themselves and have that belief, they're just goers, aren't they? Like, they never second guess themselves. Like you said, I think there's that famous Jordan quote that constantly gets thrown around. He missed more game-winning shots than he hit, but we don't talk about that. I know Ricky Ponting often talked about how, every fourth innings he was, succeeding. There was 3 failures in amongst that. So just that tenacity to keep turning up, backing yourself, and knowing that the good performances are not far around the corner, through that, self-belief and sticking to your routines, knowing that you put the work in and trusting yourself, I think is a big one. I think a lot of people just don't trust themselves in those moments, even if they do have those setbacks along the way. It's just sticking to that and that ultimate trust. And you like I said, you see those top guys just consistently just show up and put those performances in despite setbacks and things like that.
Jack, I played professional sport in an era where psychologists were just starting to be part of professional organisations. But if you were seen to book a meeting with the sports psychologist, then everyone would be thinking, what's gone wrong with him? Is he about to get divorced? Or, it was almost like it was behind closed doors. It was one-on-one. You didn't really want to tell people you were doing it. Now you're in a position where there's enormous growth in this, but you're trying to take that to the world. How have you been able to scale mental training and make it accessible through technology? Yeah, no, it's a huge mission of ours as part of the company, is to kind of help break that stigma. And that's why we intentionally really use the language. First and foremost, we're that true performance psych platform. So it's all about, how can you perform better as an athlete? And obviously in turn, that'll reflect in your life, and it teaches a lot of great universal skill sets. But we've intentionally, with the platform, really ensured that the language is focused around performance, and we use words like coaches instead of sports psychologists and things like that, just to make it to the point we're trying to do accessible and understandable, and actually go, oh, okay, right, this
equal, if we do X, it equals Y versus, oh, what am I talking about, is a bit of witchcraft, voodoo, kind of that old stigma, like you said. So I think a big part of our platform is just, like I said, giving people that access where previously, or even still, it's kind of like, do you go sit and lay on a couch with a shrink, and the app allows you to kind of get a good taste of what, no, it's quite scientific, it's quite focused, it can be a lot of fun, and it's at, in your fingertips, and it's not locked behind a closed door anymore. So yeah, that's really how we're trying to help be sort of break that stigma.
Jack, I love your personal story. A young boy growing up dreaming of being a professional athlete, I'm assuming, and talking to you from New York now, and you've got a platform that's helping people with their mental health around the globe effectively to be the best they can possibly be. And we're really privileged to have you in our Aleda Connect program, and we just see these great stories. I love sitting down for these conversations. And in your group, you've collaborated with Ryan Hoover from the Milwaukee Bucks, Brad Ebert, an AFL legend, current coach at Carlton, Justin Holbrook, who was working with the Sydney Roosters. Can you tell us about why that Aleda Connect collaboration has been a positive for you?
Yeah, I think it's just obviously world-class group and got ultra successful. And I think the great thing about Aleda, it brings a lot of like-minded people into the same room. The thing I've most enjoyed about it is, running a startup. You're so in the weeds. You're constantly kind of in survival mode, but growth mode at the same time. It's just that, up and down life of a startup. That's why I think a lot of athletes gravitate towards a startup life. It's like being out on the field, every day. I often say like a day in startup land is just like trying to face a quick on a green seamer. Like, it's just, you don't know quite what you're going to get. But being able to have that kind of space for an hour or so every other week with those credible, high achievers themselves who are on a similar mission in their own right, doing similar things, has been invaluable, just to kind of hear different perspectives, get you out of the weeds and into that kind of more bird's eye view on different problems, and kind of make you realise you're not isolated. You've got this support network around you, and everyone's kind of going through different challenges and things like that. So been really, really enjoyed just drawing on their experiences, and being a bit younger and having people like Justin in particular, followed his career really closely. I'm a big NRL guy too, but seeing how he's just sort of bounced back from his setbacks and some of the challenges he's faced and different environments and things like that, it's been invaluable, that advice. That it's really practical too, that you can actually apply like almost as soon as you get off the call, which is what I found helpful.
Going to jump into the startup question, Jack. People were listening to this and saying, here's Jack Preddey, he's working with these internationally renowned athletes and some of the most recognisable sporting organisations in the world. He's living in New York. That's the dream. But as you alluded to, it's an interesting path. There's always some challenges. What's your advice for people that are maybe wanting to start their own space?
Yeah, I think the biggest one I say is just don't think you have a lot of experience, or there's no real black box to it. It's really just, if you've got a passion for it and you really want to see it out, and you've got to obviously have a lot of tenacity and determination. I think the hardest part with startups is just staying in the game. You're constantly facing challenges, and particularly in the founder role, that's kind of your whole role, is putting out the fires and keeping things alive. So I think just going for it would be the first thing. Like, I get a lot of some friends now ask me, and I'm like, look, I didn't know anything about this space. I was just an athlete who kind of was passionate about it and thought there was a problem and something I wish I'd had, and then it's kind of evolved from there. So I think going for it, and then just being ready to kind of grit your teeth and get ready for the ride, but enjoying it at the same time. I think that's a big one I've learned is it's very cliche to sport, which I think why athletes go into it, is enjoying the process, because there's something around the corner. Like I've been guilty in the past of being like, oh, if we get X client, if we raise X money, that'll be good, I can kind of relax or something, but it's never the way. So just gritting your teeth and being ready for the journey and enjoying that process, rather than kind of looking to that end result, I think is kind of the key takeaways I've gotten out of the journey so far. So hopefully it still remains positive from here, but yeah, you never know.
Well said, Jack.
Yeah.
I love it, mate. I love that you're encouraging and positive, and as you said, there's the wins along the way to celebrate, and not going to get through without some bumps. But it sounds like, as you said, if you've dialed into a proper passion, it's going to make this an unbelievable chapter, as it has been for you. And you're now partnering with some of the biggest names in performance psychology and elite sport. What's the lesson that you've taken from those collaborations?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for us, sort of being quite grounded to the company, is just it's validated and brought a lot of credibility to what we're doing. And I guess, again, from a founder perspective with an idea, it was relieving in many senses that organisations of that calibre who did have the best performance sports psych departments built out really embraced the technology and ran with it. And I think it's, really sends a signal to me, which is what's being talked about to the broader kind of high performance world, that this space, it's going from a nice to have to a must have, and everyone's taking it seriously, and more athletes are asking for it and want it delivered in like a systematic, structured way. I think that next waves of athlete, to your point, Luke, versus your experience, they're like fully open to it and embracing it. They want to speak to sports psych. They often ask for it in their program. They want to see the tools, which is fantastic. That kind of stigma's getting broken down with each kind of new year and wave of athletes. So for me, that's been some of the biggest learnings. And then obviously just seeing how those elite organisations operate is also fascinating, and great insight into the great people they've got and how they're going about their business, which again, I'm really lucky I get to see under the hood of a lot of elite organisations. I know sort of some people who you get a job at one and you see that, where every day I'm working with sort of 20, 30 of some of the world's best. So a lot of different learnings, which is great.
Jack, there's always a lot of interest in the crossover between the business world and the sporting world, and in our Aleda space, we see the creative collaborations that happen when you put people together. Your platform also looks after people from business. What's been the lessons you've seen, the link between sport and the corporate world when it comes to mindset?
Yeah, again, I think a lot of it's just contextual is what I've learned. And it's similar to even, again, I talk about my own granular story around kind of startups to being on the field. A lot of that, like resilience and focus, concentration, self-belief, a lot of it just converts, and it's just putting into that context on that day in that environment that you're rolling with. And again, from a systematic perspective, a lot of our sports psychs now do a lot of their work in corporate and business. And again, a lot of those leaders facing the same challenges around like, how do I motivate my team, or how do I show up every day and ensure that I'm giving my best version of myself, even with challenges going on, with knowing that a board report might be coming out that's not great, or I've got to deliver this shareholders agreement, update, that might not reflect great numbers wise, but then I've also got to talk to a room of like interns that are excited, and I've got to kind of distinguish that. So I think it's just taking a lot of those key fundamentals and then just putting them in that key context and ensuring that, again, it delivers for each individual. But the crossovers, fascinating for me, and you can see why obviously so many high performance trends obviously start in sport and flow into that business world, because ultimately you're just kind of competing for that end result, which you're trying to get to every day, whether it's business or as an athlete.
Jack, always curious about the daily habits of people and your expertise now in the mental strength side. If you could give our listeners a couple of practical daily habits that might strengthen their own mental performance, where would you go with that?
Yeah, I think it's so popular now, but I think the foundation of all good psych and performance psych now and mental health is obviously good sleep, routines like that. It's often spoken about hugely even in the work we do, and obviously there's so much data and everything to support that now. But outside of that, I think the biggest one, again, I think taking the time to really understand yourself and what your strengths are. And I think that's where like an Aleda program's been really helpful, is everyone's different. Everyone's got their own kind of mental cues and things that work for them. I think really taking the time, and the quicker you can understand and learn that, the better. And then it's just working on it and applying it. And like you said, those daily routines, like wake up and spend the 2-3 minutes. That's all it takes. Like actually working on that mental skill, whatever it might be, like put it into practice, put yourself into those challenging environments where you're growing that mental muscle, on a daily basis. I think they're the key ones. Again, it's like everything, just it's fundamentals, and it can be simple. You don't have to overcomplicate. And I think that's where this space, the mental performance space, has also gotten its own way in some ways. It's kind of these big, broad, 2-hour long presentations, and then these big notebooks, and they got to work through. It's like, no, like find your thing and do it a couple of times a week, even as little as that. We often see, even US Olympic athletes are doing something small twice a week, and it's having a massive impact on their mental state and mental readiness going to performance. So find your thing and kind of keep it simple would probably be the underlying message there.
We all are born different. As we grow, the experiences we have develop into outlooks uniquely our own, charting our life's course. No one sees an idea, opinion, or opportunity like you. And no one sees you like VU. Victoria University. Uniquely you.
At Aleda, our signature program, Aleda Connect, is something we're really passionate and proud of. We bring together groups of 5 to 6 people around the globe from diverse backgrounds, sport, industry, social venture and the arts, who come together to learn, to connect and to collaborate.
The thing that I've loved about it is not just the meetings that we have with our group, it's the thinking that you do for days and days afterwards. Someone says something and it sparks a thought, and I found that I would go back and look at things that I was doing in a different light. Within my sport and within women's sport, I'm just someone who I try to lead by keeping people talking about the issues. There's times when I think the person I'm trying to convince is not listening to me. It actually got me thinking about, okay, this is how I need to address my communication with them. So it was so valuable, and the little group that we've got is great, and I'm really looking forward to sort of continuing to connect with them into the future because we're all so very different. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed it.
You've got in at a time where mental performance is something that people are thinking about more and more. If you cast your mind and head out to 5 or 10 years, do you think that mental skills training could get to a point in that period where it's as normalised as physical training? Is that possible?
Yeah, definitely. It's really the underlying thesis of our whole company. Our theory is that there's so much data and technology on the physical side now that, particularly at the elite level, that the gains there are really only marginal at this point, and the real next wave for athletes and organisations to reach that potential and get that differentiator has to be mental skills training. The trends there, you look at how the physical fitness trend started with a few teams, athletes in the gym, and now it's an everyday part of like everybody's life, and we honestly do think that. And I think especially sort of piggybacking off the great work around the mental health stigma and all that type of stuff, and people again really understanding those fundamentals like sleep and basic mental health, and now that next wave of like, okay, well now we've got a good baseline mental health, how can I optimize my mindset to improve my outcomes in whatever environment I'm in. So that's our underlying thesis. So hopefully it comes true.
I was talking to Dr. David Reed, the mental skills coach for the Chennai Super Kings, who's been a great legend in our Aleda space. And he was referencing attention spans have diminished from close to 3 minutes to under 50 seconds now for the average person on the planet, with all the tech and the algorithms coming our way. And that is anxiety inducing for a whole generation. It seems as though the antidote for that, Jack, is what you're trying to do, isn't it? Give people the skills to be able to work on their mental fitness as we've always done on our physical fitness and understood that. And is that attention span and an anxious generation, we're calling the next generation, something you think about as well, Jack, in this context?
Yeah, massively. And I think a lot of our, a lot of the athletes we work with are coming out of that, probably the first wave of that generation you'd refer to that as. Again, because particularly we work quite heavily in the college space. And as I was referring to earlier, like each of those year groups, you can see not even like generational gaps, like one year after the other, they're just getting more and more attuned to this side of things. And I think it's definitely because of awareness, but just because of they've got that provoked anxiety and all those kind of challenges they face nowadays with attention spans and getting pulled in so many different directions and the challenges that come with that. So we're seeing it firsthand. Like every year, the data's showing that to us. Definitely agree with that. Absolutely.
How about you personally, Jack? What do you go to for your own routine so that you can be at your best and your healthiest? Yeah,
I think it's something that I work on really hard. Obviously, the physical side is a given, has to be done, and I obviously always been quite active, so enjoy that side of things. And then outside of that, love my kind of morning quick meditation, couple of minutes. I really like the tactical lessons as well, and again, I think that's a big differentiator in the mental performance space, that a lot of people still think it's just sort of sleep and meditations. There's actually a lot of actual tactical stuff, like even as simple as like staring at a wall and staring back and pinpointing, and it can improve your concentration and breathing and things like that. So I've got a couple of go-tos that I, again, try and do daily, but if not, at least a few times a week, which is plenty. And then educating myself on those other areas as well and putting that into practice as regularly as I can as well, just to stay sharp and ensure I'm maximising my brain potential. is being really key. And I've definitely seen the difference. And I guess on a less serious note, I still play a fair bit of social cricket here in New York, believe it or not. So I like to apply the true hard sports psych day to day if I can, and hopefully, it improves our park cricket results. Applying to the sports setting still.
No, we love that, Jack. That idea that you're leading yourself so that you can lead others. It sounds like you're very clear on your routines, and great to see Major League Cricket having a crack in the US is an amazing story in itself. Is there one piece of leadership advice that you've learned in your experience that you pass on?
Yeah, I think the probably less an exact advice, but just from leadership styles that I've seen, I think the kind of servant leadership and the doing style of leadership, something that's really resonated with me. I've had a few leaders that really lead by example, and I think that whole cliche of kind of not asking someone of something that you wouldn't expect yourself to do or haven't done, that for me is sort of what resonates the most with my leadership, and I gravitate generally towards when reading books or listening to podcasts like this and things like that. So I think for me that leadership style is been the most prominent, and I think it's particularly in the startup world it's a given. So I try and take as much inspiration from those type of leaders as I can, and that's always stuck with me, that sort of servant leadership and just rolling your sleeves up and serving through action as well.
Jack, it's an incredible vision that you've got to democratise mental skills and performance psychology to the world and make it accessible to people that has probably been cost prohibitive. You've got that vision, but now you've got a team that you're building around. Have you been able to sort of share that vision and deliver it within your own team?
Yeah, it's something that I've reflected a little bit more on during the Aleda course, and something that I was lucky. I've hired some really good people that organically just bought into the vision as well. But I think the biggest way for me that I've been able to articulate it is just through showing them like the passion and the drive that I have for the company, and knowing that I won't, leave any stone unturned. And I think that hopefully is a bit infectious, and they really embrace that and run with it. And I've seen that kind of reflected. I don't think I'm one for like many words and to sit down and give these like long inspirational speeches and articulate it. And frankly, we don't really have the time. We're a pretty small team. I think they'd be annoyed at me that I'm chewing into their work hours. But I think just like showing them that, like I'm all in for them. I want to see them grow as part of this as well. And I do take pride in that, even though we're a small team. I've been lucky to kind of employ 4 or 5 people who have been able to jump in and do something they're a bit more passionate about and enjoy, and be able to get potentially a lot more upside than they would have in their current or previous roles. So I think just that, again, just leading by action and bringing them along that journey and trying to involve them in as many of the kind of conversations so they fully understand kind of your current mindset and things like that as you can. I've liked to do, and seems to have been to work so far along the way.
Jack, we see people inherently curious who go on to do what you're doing and have success in their chosen field. Can you share how curiosity shows up for you, and maybe a rabbit hole that curiosity has taken you down recently?
Yeah, I think you're constantly just jumping down rabbit holes in this space. And I think, to your point, I think that curiosity is what really drives a lot of this. Cliche as hell at the moment, but AI rabbit holes, I'm jumping down like left, right and centre. I think it's fascinating. Personally, running a business, I'm a massive fan. I think for what we're trying to do when we're a goal-oriented company, a lot of obviously AI gets people to their goals quicker, and the analytics and the reporting that can come off the back of that to improve that experience for orgs and athletes. There's a lot of sort of AI marked books on my desk at the moment, or nighttime bedstand. ChatGPT is getting good working. So a lot of curiosity around that at the moment. I just think it has the capabilities to catapult businesses forward, people forward, the whole lot. It's pretty exciting times, I think, and particularly in sport and this space, I think, because like I said, I think we said at the top, mental skills has struggled to kind of quantify itself, and I think AI is now kind of helping do that. Obviously human powered, but just those ability to run reports, tools, and look a bit deeper into things we might have missed. So that's my current rabbit hole at the moment.
Jack, we love the saying that the cost of leadership is time. How are you juggling the workloads of a startup and the demands of running your own team, but still living the balanced and successful life you want to live?
Yeah, I think for me, when you sign up for the startup life, you pretty quickly realise you sacrifice probably the traditional balance that people might go for. And I think for me, that's accepting that pretty early on made it easier. And I look for kind of the small wins around that to make sure I'm mentally refreshed, can lead the team, jump in every day. So it's the small things like taking that hour and a half to run, and I love running and doing that, and kind of turning the phone off first. A week holiday, like it's just a thing of the past. You're just not getting it. So those smaller wins, Sunday mornings, things like that, I try and get myself out, do a longer run, or just have some kind of time to reflect and do things at my own pace a little bit more. So I think just being disciplined around that and sticking to it, and I think not forfeiting. Like it's easy to pick up your phone and in the middle of a gym session and get frustrated and walk out and give up that hour to go run the business again. But I think just being disciplined and giving you those small wins, and probably just being accepting of the fate, like, you're not having 4-week long vacations through Europe and all that anymore. Like it's gone. So you just have to take it where it is and probably be accepting of there's less balance, but actually in many ways that makes it more balanced, if that makes sense.
Sure does. Who's been the greatest leader in your life, Jack?
I've been lucky to have a few. I think first and foremost, I think it's an easy one, but kind of parents on that frontline leadership. A lot of their skills they taught us running a family. I was one of 4, grew up in the country, so they had a lot of great fundamentals they taught us from like a leadership perspective. Mum was sort of pretty senior at a school, and so I kind of got to see it in action, and then obviously around the house too. So I think a lot of that was ingrained. But outside of that, being a sportsman first and foremost, some of my early coaches had a lot of skill sets I still call on, and probably that gritty kind of, I guess, country sport mentality, but also that softness to kind of know your story, appreciate your individuality, and back you, and really want to see you achieve your best. And I was lucky to have that kind of community support around me as a kid through a lot of those coaches. So kind of going back to that grassroots level for me is kind of where I've had probably a lot of my leadership skill set, and still look fondly back at that.
Jack, you've been incredible at collaborating and extensive work through the US college system and collaborating with these elite performers around the globe. Has there been one person or one organisation you thought, whether it's you personally out of interest or optimise my performance, God, I can collaborate with that individual or that space? Is there a name or a space that jumps to mind?
Yeah, I mean, obviously so many we're lucky to work with a lot of them on a personal level and optimise base. And this one sort of came out a bit out of nowhere, but it's actually an Aleda alum in Craig Fitzgibbon. I'll go, if you can cut this bit out. No, all good. I'm a Sharks fan. I'm a big rugby league guy. So I got the chance to meet Craig and talk to him about the platform, and he embraced it straight away, and he's really forward thinking. Is a huge proponent of this space, and I've been lucky enough now to work quite closely with them through the platform, but also he's invited me into a few of their kind of leadership days and just seeing them pre-camps, and I was in Vegas with him, which was awesome at the start of the year, and just seeing how he navigates the team and the way he presents and his leadership style really resonated with me, and the culture he's created there has been fantastic. So from an optimised perspective and a personal, that's probably one that's pretty close to heart, which has been great, and really enjoyed.
It's a great shout out, and you're not allowed to have favourites, but Craig Fitzgibbon may be one of the most all-time great people I think we've met in our Aleda community, and have been lucky enough to do a podcast. So if you haven't heard Fitzy's podcast, not only was he one of the all-time great players, but you're right, the care and the way that he deals with people, an outstanding person, outstanding coach. So encourage you to go back and listen to Fitzy's podcast. And not surprised he's had an impact on you the way he has, Jack. He's massively, a pretty unique guy, isn't he?
He was actually the one who steered me into this, which even for him to invest the time to think of me to do this says a lot about him. So it's been great.
Jack, I love your story. I think what you're doing is unbelievable. It's much needed in the world, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a young person at school who's trying to deal with the challenges of growing up, or someone my age just wanting to live the best life you can. Optimise my performance is a great achievement. It's a great success, even if it ended today, which it's clearly not. There's so much more to do, and I love the way you're going about it, Jack. Thanks for sharing some of your wisdom today. It's a brilliant story. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks, Luke. Appreciate it. And loving the Aleda course and all the different podcasts. So keep up the great work.